Come here. Get off. Welcome to this week's episode of The Turn On. This week we are joined by D.L. White, pronouns she and her. Atlanta-based author D.L. White began seriously pursuing a writing career in 2011. She has a legendary love for coffee, fried chicken, and brunch, especially on a patio. Her true obsession, though, is water. Lakes, rivers, oceans, waterfalls. This just makes me think of TLC. On the weekend,
Atlanta waterfall.
On the weekend, you'll probably find her near water, and if she's lucky, on an ocean beach. When not writing books, she devours them. She blogs reviews and thoughts on writing and books at booksbydlwhite.com and Goodreads. Grab a book by D.L. White and put it in your face. I love that you have your hashtag. And yes, put it in your face always.
Put it in your face.
I do.
That's what she
say
said.
that all the time. Your face wants books. Put it in your
and
face.
Other things.
I do too.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. When a podcast that I listen to a lot, asks me to be on, I'm just fangirling. I'm just very excited.
Oh my gosh. It's so dope that you listen, right? No, thank you for listening, and thank you even more for coming on.
Thank you for agreeing. Yeah. So, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a teacher. And I got all the way to college, and I went to declare my major, and I looked at those education classes, and I was like, no, these look boring. What looks interesting? So I went through the course catalog until I found classes that looked fun, and I landed on communications. So I have a degree in comm studies, and I do have a minor in teaching English as a second or foreign language. So I am kind of an English teacher, but I'm mostly communications.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you come to be a writer?
I think I just was always a writer. It's something that I'm an introvert. I'm not shy, but I'm very insular. I love being alone. Yes. I just sit in my room and read. And the stories kind of just started building in my head. And my earliest memory is when you would be in school and you have to do the spelling words. And the teacher says, use each word in a sentence because I need to make sure that you understand what this word means. And I would take my sentences and write a whole story.
Fancy.
So if there's 25 words, my story would be a 25-sentence story because the assignment was boring. So I was just trying to jazz it up. I was just entertaining me. And my teacher really liked it. And my mom was pleased with it that my teacher liked it. I was like, oh, you guys like that? Well, I'm going to keep doing it. and so I started doing it. And I'm a people pleaser, but I liked that I was doing something that other people seemed to really enjoy. And so I just kept doing it. And, as I got older, I started writing longer stories and poetry and getting more involved. And then when I was in high school, our local college used to have an essay contest every year. And I would enter every year, and I won twice. So I was like, I think I might actually be good at this. So I should keep doing it. And so that's kind of where it started. Yeah.
Well, that's really dope. Who or what inspires you to write?
I don't know if I have one inspiration. A lot of times I just hear something and it clicks in my mind. Definitely, current events or the state of relationships between Black men and women are a definite inspiration. I think for me, there was a point in time where every news story was Black women are unlovable. 48% of Black women will never marry. Black women and Asian men are the most undesirable. And I just felt like bombarded by that. And to combat that, I needed to write something that was encouraging and uplifting and made me feel like I could love and be loved and I was lovable. And in my stories, Black men love Black women. And in my stories, the Black women don't have to be, thin and beautiful and Beyonce-like. And in my stories, the men and the women, the couples can't get enough of each other. They want more of each other. So I think, maybe my books are my way of talking back to whatever that stigma or that stereotype is that is still prevalent today. If you are anywhere on social media, you see all day, every day about how Black men hate Black women. And that just doesn't exist in my books.
When we talked about your book on the last episode, I clearly said, like, they have lots of sex, but it's like good, delicious, like you can tell. And now that you're saying that, it's like, oh, it totally makes sense. But everyone, not every, but like everyone's in good relationships, and like it's
they actually like each other.
It's a breath of fresh air.
Mostly, and they actually like each other mostly.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just like
they're
it feels good.
Yeah, enamored with each other, and I just feel like it's healthy for people to have good relationships with their parents. It's it's normal for Black people to be upwardly mobile and upper to middle class and to have money. And I think that it's easy to pile a bunch of struggle on top of people and then kind of write your way out of it. For me, it's more of a challenge to write your Black woman and your Black man. The mama's good and daddy's good, but he's an asshole. Why? What's his story? What's his deal? What happened in his life? What made him that way? I want to write my way out of that because I guess I don't mean that it's easy, but I think it can be a little bit of a crutch to drop in some drama or something stereotypical and kind of roll that into your story. And I just want normal, regular ass Black people in love. That's what I want.
Yeah. And it gives you an opportunity to do something that I think you do really well, which is to go inside, right? Their struggles are so very internal, and the ways that they react to the people around them and the ways that they navigate through their relationships are very much informed by the shit that they're dealing with inside. And that's just like all of us. That's the shit that makes it hard for us to be vulnerable. That's the shit that makes it hard for us to say what we really mean instead of what we think we're supposed to say.
Yes.
And that's hard to do. It's hard to do in real life.
And a lot of times you'll see, in the reviews, like, I just don't understand why it took so long for her to say this and do that. And I'm like, because you're perfect. Because you've never been. I am the pettiest. Listen, I am the pettiest, most immature person I know. I really am. I will do wrong for 12 years in order to avoid having to say I'm sorry. And if you want to read a book about perfect people, Disney has a whole line of books over here. But my books are about real people, and my people are petty. They're a little bit bitchy. They got stuff going on. They might have some other issues, and that all is all wrapped up in your relationships and how you relate to other people.
Yeah.
How do you balance? I know you got a day job. How do you balance writing with a day job?
I think that a lot of authors that have day jobs treat their writing like it's another job, and I can't do that. It is, I call it a lucrative side gig, and it pays for shiny things and vacations. On occasion, it can pay a bill and put some gas in the car. And I do okay. I'm not balling out of control over here, but I do okay. All my energy and my effort has to go to the day job because that's what makes it possible for me to write. I could never write full time because I would have an ulcer worrying about how to pay these bills with this Amazon paycheck. I need security and stability, and that day job provides that. And then typically from like Thursday night through Sunday is when I will spend time writing or reading or, planning out stories. But if I'm not secure in my day job, I can't write. I can't. I just don't have that security and that stability for me to be able to dream and for me to be able to step out of reality. I got to fix reality first before I can even start in the fictional world. So
you're writing somebody else's.
Yeah. So I write when I feel like it, and I just happen to feel like it a lot. So, a couple hours here, there, I'll start with 1K, 1 hour, 1,000 words or 1 hour, whichever comes first. And once I get started as like a lawnmower, where it just goes until you shut it off. Like sometimes I'm just like literally falling asleep, like typing. Okay.
Wow.
One more word and we're done with this scene. And now we can go to sleep, because otherwise it'll wake me up at 3 a.m. So it just kind of sits in my head until I put it on paper. So I think really one of the other things that it compels me to write is that the stories write themselves in my head, and they don't leave me alone until I write them down. And so I have to get to a point where I can concentrate on my writing, which means like fixing my day job and fixing my day life, so I can actually sit down and put time towards getting words on the page. But that typically comes, on the weekends, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night's a good time for me to write. And then usually all day Sunday, I'm either reading or writing.
Word. You have a system.
Yeah. And I think that's good, because we do talk to a lot of people and we're like, fuck the day job. Not fuck the day job, but we're like, I'm gonna pour my energy into this passion. And my sister always says, she's like, I'm not horny if my bills ain't paid. Like,
right.
She's like, I'm not a gold digger, but don't think you're gonna come and try to, make me feel good when my bills ain't paid. And
right.
So I gotta have everything in order before I go on to the next. Yeah.
So much. And I used to know people that would be like, oh, I need my power is off, or I need my gas bill is $400. And what about that dude you're sleeping with? And I can't ask him. Like, oh girl, he been all up and through you, and you can't ask him for $400. Ciao.
I literally had to say that to somebody who called me and said their electricity was off. I was like, but that nigga is up in your house. What you talking about? How's it 2 grown folks in this house, including that one, and y'all ain't got no damn electricity?
Eating your food, using your electricity, watching your TV, got his butt print in your couch. But you can't ask him to go half on the electric. You're better than me, because I would have been having my hand out. If you want some of this, I need some of that. And I'm not a gold digger either, but you're not going to come up in here and use up all my stuff and then leave me out in the cold. No.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. So tell us about your latest work, The Neverland. I loved A Thin Line. It was when you said that they haunt you, they talk to you in your sleep. I find myself reading before bed, and then I'd wake up in the middle of the night like, well, damn, I got to figure out what's about to happen. So now I want to know about the next book.
The Neverlist. I started this book like maybe 2016, and it's been so long that I do not know why I started writing this story. I think I just had an idea for something different. Like, I can't write the same thing over and over. There are a lot of authors out there that are just writing the same book with different characters. Their names are different and they live in a different city, but it's the same book over and over. And a lot of readers love that. I can't do it. I can't. I'm like, I wrote this book already. I space
them out. Like, if they're well written, I'll still read them. I'm thinking of one particular series that I've been working my way through, and it's the same every time, but it's well written and it's pleasurable.
Yeah.
But I gotta space them shits out because
Those are the books that I save for like the end of the year when I'm behind on my Goodreads challenge.
Are you trying to catch up?
Right. I'm like, oh, let me read that because I know it's going to be good, but I know it's like the previous 15 that this person has written. But it's good. I don't need to concentrate. It's not a new experience. So I think I just had an idea for a different story, and I wanted to write a modern virgin heroine who wasn't shy and wasn't precious about her virginity, but she wanted it to be special. And the thing about the story was it was a lot of it autobiographical in that I waited a long time to take that step. And because I wanted it to mean something to me. And the longer that I held out, the easier it became to say no. Until I was meeting that were like, when you gonna let me hit that? And I would be like, nah, that's just not going to work for me because I just feel like my vibrator is going to do a better job. So like, I just don't feel like you're going to care if I come. I feel like you're going to, and then be like, all right, I'm out. And that's just not going to get it for me. I want you to care about my experience. I want you to care about if I have a good time. And so I think that in this book, Esme Whitaker is my heroine. She has really already had her glow up. She's nearing 40. She went and got her MBA. She's got a new job. She's bought a house. Life is great, except she's still a virgin. And it's not that she's precious about it. It's that she is waiting for that opportunity to meet someone great who's going to show her a good time and who's going to make sure that she has a good time in that, because he's already had sex. So what's going to be important in this situation is that she has a good time, that she gets to explore, that it's a good experience for her. And, when I was an older, a modern virgin, I would read a lot about first-time experiences, and people would be like, I wish I would have waited longer, or I didn't even come, or I didn't want that. And so I didn't want that for Esme. And so this is just the story of her. The book opens with her meeting a guy that she met off of a dating website, and he ends up ghosting her. But she gets in a little snap fight with the dude at the table next door, and through the magic of fiction, ends up meeting up with him later, and they end up in a situation where they're on either side of the negotiation table, and they have to work together to bring this deal to a close. And so he decides that in order to make this deal work, that he should help her satisfy items on her never list. She ends up dropping the list, and he's reading it, and she's like, give me that, because she doesn't want him to see that number one on the list is have sex. And so he decides that he's going to help her satisfy items on her list. And for every item that he helps her cross off, she goes back to the dude who's trying to sell his company to say, okay, let's negotiate this item on the contract and that item on the contract, because they're in a little bit of a contract negotiation. I'm not explaining this very well, but
you are. No, I just bought it.
So,
I literally just bought it.
I'm like, yo, this needs to be a movie. I mean, a book, but you need to screenwrite.
Awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so, so the book is basically Esme and Trey working through her items on the never list. Also, Esme and Trey working through this contract because Trey is trying to buy this little company. Trey is working through some things with his father, and his dad kind of doesn't trust him and treats him like a little pup. And so the thing about this book is that, of course, she's a virgin. So the book is not going to open with them banging. So how do I create intimacy between these characters without writing sex? And so that was like the fun part. Like, so, what can they do, and how do they get closer, and how do you create intimacy with conversation and flirting and touching and oral sex and heavy petting until you get to like the last quarter of the book and you're like, all right, you're going to do it, because they do. Obviously, it's a romance. it's an adult romance, so they are obviously going to be having copious sex in the book, but that's not going to come until later. But I still want the reader to feel good and, you know, to get the good stuff while they're reading this book. And I wanted it to be like kind of funny and down to earth. And so there are some funny parts in this book. Trey and Esme really snap at each other. I'm a very sarcastic person. And so I can't write a book without a heroine that is, I don't really write syrupy, sweet heroines. They're always a little bit snappy, a little bit sarcastic. She's always got something smart to say. And so they kind of bite at each other here and there, but it's not really mean. It's more lovingly. So I had a lot of fun putting these characters together, putting them in rooms together, putting them in situations where you can tell that they really, really, really want to have sex. But first they can't because there's a contract between them. It can't look like Esme slept with Trey to get concessions on this contract. Also, she's a virgin and he don't know. So she got to figure out first how to tell him she's a virgin and then convince him that he needs to be the one to take her over the rainbow. And then Trey has to agree that that's what he wants to do. And then they got to do it. And so that's the Neverlist. Totally fun book to write.
Yeah.
I hope it's fun to read. So
I'm going to read it. It's interesting. You were talking about, she wants to make sure that she'll be able to come, and you're saying you're reading, and a lot of folks were talking about that. But like, I feel like most people probably don't come the first time they have sex, no matter how old they are. I know I didn't. It was quite some time before I learned enough about my body to be able to direct somebody or take matters into my own hands in the middle of a couple situation to be able to come. So that's a high bar.
I know I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't.
And the dudes didn't care either.
No.
And, I think that it's great that because here's the thing. I feel like Virginity, we have hangups about it. And I like the way that you look at it. Like, it's not like it's this, precious gem. It's just, I want to make sure that the person that I'm doing it with gives a damn and wants to make sure it's special for me, or not even wants to make sure it's special. Just make sure I come,
It's supposed to be like a fun, erotic, intimate experience. It's not supposed to be wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Can I have some water? I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are both supposed to have a good time. So, and really, I feel like by the time you're in your mid to late 30s, you know what sex is about. And I would always tell the people, I may have never milked a cow, but I know everything about the pasture. I know what I'm doing. I just need to go over that rainbow. Are you down or not? And really, by the time I had sex, I was like, let's just do it. I just don't even fucking care. Let's go.
Break this
do
deal.
It. Because I just wanted to be able to say that I did it.
Yeah.
I didn't come. He didn't care. I didn't care. I was like, get out.
Yeah. Bring me some water on your way out.
Bring me some water.
Parched.
Yeah.
Word. So we know that you listen to podcasts like ours.
Yeah.
But we also know that you sometimes produce your own bookcasts that showcase your work. Can you kind of tell us about that experience? Like, where'd that idea come from? What did you love about it? All of that.
I was listening to Christina C. Jones does what she calls story time. And she had a story that she wrote specifically for the podcast. And I was like, that is such a good idea. And I had been thinking about doing it because I also write fan fiction. I'm a huge NSYNC fan. And I run an NSYNC fan site. And I was like, I should record some of my stories and put them out in audio because I think people would really like to listen to them. But then I was like, I can't make no money off of that. And I was like, well, maybe I should write a book and then release it via audio, like not because recording an audiobook is expensive when you're an indie author, really, really like thousands of dollars. But I could produce a book cast and read it via podcast for little to no money. So I decided to go ahead and do that. I had time and a microphone. This was like right as COVID got started, and I just needed something to take my mind off of COVID and
Everything.
to keep me from looking at numbers and all of that. Like, let me just get real busy. So I finished A Thin Line, and I put another book out in audio, and then I finished the Neverland. And to practice, I took some of my holiday shorts, and because those are too short to be recorded in audio, I just recorded them for the Bookcast so that I could practice reading out loud and being up and smile and awake and make this sound engaging and not like I am reading from a piece of paper. I'm really terrible about checking numbers and subscriptions, so I do not know how many people listen to it. I know I got like one review from a person that reviews everything that I do, but I just don't ever check. I wanted to do it for the experience and just so that I could say it's out there. And, you know, I have the time, and I do know that some people have listened to it. My cousin said that she listened to it, and that's how she read the book through the Bookcast. It was fun. It's a lot of work. It was a lot
I was
of
going
work,
to ask you, what was surprising about that process of reading?
I really thought it was going to be easier than it was. Just the editing, like, after producing that Bookcast, my sentences are going to be much simpler because reading the words that I write on the page out loud is a lot. I just would be reading like mess up. Like, why can't I read this word? Mess up. Like, and then I would like have to mark like where my mistakes were so I could cut that out and then download Audacity and then go back and just edit and then find an opener and then close and then like find a really good way to open each episode and close each episode. And it was a lot. I think I probably will never do a full length novel again on the Bookcast, but I do want to do like short fiction, flash fiction, my holiday shorts. I of course will probably always do in on the Bookcast, but this was 31 chapters. That book is 97,000 words. Probably never again. It was a lot. It was just a lot. I frustrated myself a lot. It was fun. It definitely took up the time that I wanted it to take. It was just a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So thank you again for letting us read an excerpt from A Thin Line. I think I opened this. I was like, I never not like a character, but Preston was irking my damn nerves. I was like,
didn't you want to punch him in the forehead?
Oh my God, he's such an asshole. And we talk about, I think you've heard it, we talk about like guys being mean because they like you. Preston's just an asshole, period. Like, he's just a jerk all around.
Yeah.
And one of the things that stood out to me in the book was your opening where you were like, look, I wrote this a while back. I had to revisit it. So tell me about that process and what pushed you to revisit it.
This book was originally a long fan fiction story. And after reading it, some of my readers said, you should really unfanfic this and publish it because it's good.
What was it based on?
What was it based on?
It was based on JC from NSYNC, and it's a AU, so alternate universe. So it's like this person, but if he was a lawyer. And I think that when I write JC, I write him as a kind of a sarcastic asshole. And I had been writing him kind of so like sweet and loving in previous stories that I was like, you know what? Called up my beta. I have a beta just for fan fiction, and we are huge fans. And I said, I really want to write JC as an ass, like a total ass. And she's like, you should do that. She never tells me not to write a story. And so I started writing this, and I said, so the story should be that he's just kind of this dude that is just pining after this woman and they broke up a long time ago for a super, super petty reason. Probably should have never broke up. And he's just been kind of trying to get her back, but kind of not, just really on her nerves. And I just want to work the situation to where they have to work together in order to accomplish a goal. And while working together, they just happen to realize that they still love each other. And the fanfic story turned out great. I don't think I ever finished it, actually. But I got that story to a part where I was like, I think I'm ready to turn this into fiction. And so so I made Preston Black and Angie Black and all their friends Black.
I was just about to say, like, it's amazing that you started with Insane.
Yep.
And ended here.
Because it's such a black ass book.
And it is a black ass book.
It's black.
We keep saying we're gonna visit fan fiction on this show, but like that right there is just an example of like how, like, I mean, wow. I feel like you just like made like macaroni and cheese. Like you took like Velveeta and made it into like some black ass
soul food
with the crusty corner macaroni and cheese.
Yeah. So the original iteration of this story ended much earlier at like when they're out at the banks of the river together on Christmas. That's where the original story ended. Okay. And I was just reading some authors like Alexandria House, and for me, sometimes the story ends when they're like, I love you too, happy ever after, and the end. And like when I read her stories, she goes all the way past that to like them together as a couple and ins and outs and day to day. And I was like, I kind of want to take Preston and Angie past the I love you moment. Let's get real. Let's get down. Let's get past, because they've been in love with each other since they were teenagers. So there's so much more to the story than they love each other. It's also that their friends can't know that they're back together. It's also that they have two separate lives that they have to bring back together. It's also that Angie's concerned about her dad because he has Parkinson's, and how Preston falls into the family, and how everybody in the friend group kind of groups up together, and they've left Preston and Angie out. And I love like big groups of couple friends, that kind of thing. So it was just kind of a meld of everything that I wanted in a story. And this is a long book, but it turned out exactly the way that I wanted it when I went back and redid it. And originally it didn't sell very well because there was so much buildup, and then it ended at I love you, let's be together. And I just felt like the story should just go well past that. And I took that story down. There were two books that I wrote that used to be fan fiction that just didn't sell well. And so I took them down. But this story just kept knocking at my door. It kept waking me up and thought, you could do this and you could do that, and you could extend the story, and it could be about this, and you could add that. And I could not stop thinking about it. And so I started rewriting it in 2019. And then I finished it like right as COVID hit. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is just perfect. Now I have a whole new book for y'all to read. Go buy it and take your mind off of this infection thing that's going around. And so, so that really took me through. I think I re-released this like the end of March 2020, like as COVID hit. Yeah. And so I really needed that distraction. And then I went from that into the Never list. And so it really helped me fill those hours, because work sent us home like early March and said, don't come back here. And so I just had so much time on my hands. I needed something to do. Wow. That was it.
Okay, so in the scene that we read, Angie refuses to tell Preston that she loves him. And he tries to persuade her to say it and that kind of thing. But it seemed like that little scene right there, like, perfectly summed up like their whole relationship. Like if we had to just do this scene is the root of the book. This is what it is. How did you dream that up?
I am trying to think of where that came from. I haven't heard the episode that you're referring to. So is this when they're in the elevator at the hotel?
It's when they're in the bed and he's trying to make her. They took a bath, and then he's trying to make her say it, and so he's like edging too close. Yeah.
I mean, I just really like writing sex. So, I mean, I don't like writing sex, but I like writing sex where it's like, it's fun and it's banter and it's not all hot, sweaty porn utterings. And I do feel like that's their relationship. Like they kind of, they push and they pull, and Preston is really aggressive.
Preston frustrates me. Like,
she was so angry at him.
Preston is, he's aggressive. But so is Angie. And Angie is very headstrong. She's going to do what she wants to do because she wants to do it. And not because Preston wants her to. But I think they also needed to come to a point where they give in to each other because it would make the other person happy. And I think that Angie at a point knows that it's going to make him happy to hear her say, I love you. But she also wants him to work for it. And I think the whole thing about this book was that it's one thing to have a character that has a redemption arc where at the end of this book they're going to end up together, but how they get together is the story. I wanted Preston to work for it. I didn't want it to be easy. And a lot of people said, Angie spent way too long being mad and she was just so petty for so long. And I was like, so they broke up in high school. And he basically he never went away. It's like just having something in your ear all the time for 15 years, never leaving you alone. He just never shut the fuck up. He just never went away. And after a while, that's annoying. I don't want you around me. Go away. And she's there because her dad is sick and she doesn't want to move away. But Preston never left. And so it's been, so many years of this. And after he's like, okay, fine, I love you. She's supposed to just lay down and spread her legs. It's been so many years of him just being a total ass to her, but she should just immediately go, okay, I love you too. No, she knows how she feels, or she thinks she knows how she feels. And so I wanted Preston to have to work for it. I wanted Preston to have to win Angie back over. I wanted Preston to have to eat a little bit of crow. I wanted
a little bit of puss.
Yeah, a little bit of puss. And I really wanted Preston to have to work for it. And I wanted Angie to come to that realization that it wasn't all him and that she played a huge part in A, them breaking up, and B, them being apart for so long, because she could have just said, you know what? You said what you said and you lied, but it's a really dumb reason to break up and let's just not break up. But she stood her ground because she's stubborn and she's petty. And now it's been 15 years and they're just now getting back together. But I think that just is another situation where I wanted them to have to work for it. And I didn't want it to be a flowery, sweet, I love you so much, my darling, I love you. I can't do that. That's not either one of them. Like, they have their sweet moments, but that's not either one of them. They push and they pull each other, and they're abrasive, and they're both very aggressive, headstrong people. And I wanted that to carry throughout the entire book.
I think that ultimately both Angie and Preston had a really hard time being vulnerable. Right? Like from when they were teens to now. And it almost cost them what they wanted. Have you ever found yourself in a similar situation where you had to force yourself to be vulnerable in a way that felt really uncomfortable?
I mean, all the time. I don't do vulnerability very easily. it's really hard
Wow,
for me.
Tyrion, look at your mirror.
Okay, first of all, bitch, I've gotten much better at it.
You have.
I worked on it. I work on it really hard.
Really hard.
I just will admit, I will admit to just not being very good at it. I'm not good at vulnerability because I feel like when I lower that wall, then people go, "Bam! You shouldn't have done that." And so I can't do it right now. Maybe I need therapy. I don't know, but I can't.
You know how we feel about therapy.
I can't do it. And so I feel like maybe that comes out in a lot of my characters to where they can't, it takes them a while to come to the point where they really let all their defenses down and they put their trust in this person that says, I am going to take care of your heart and I am not going to hurt you, at least on purpose. And we are going to have a happy life together. And like sometimes I look at relationships and I just look at these two people and I'm like, how do you know he's going to be there in 10 years? Like, how do you know? How do you know? How do you trust that? How do you go into a like when I date somebody, I'm like, I might not know this dude in September. Like, I just don't know that it's going to work out because I can't bring myself to that vulnerable place of hoping. It just takes a lot to wear down my walls. And I haven't met someone that's willing to do that work. And I haven't been willing to do that work for myself. So I really can't remember the last time I was vulnerable. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but I don't remember the last time that I really put myself out there. It's probably been years.
So that kind of leads into our next question. Which of the characters do you most identify with in the story?
In this story, I don't know that I identify with any of them. Like Jackie and Morgan are really like happy-go-lucky people that just really lucked into great relationships. And, Brandis and Keith found each other in college. But I don't think that I'm anything like Angie. Maybe Preston. And I really try not to write myself because that's very what they call Mary Sue. But I really try not to write myself in stories, and I try not to put too many of my own characteristics into a story. Sometimes some things do seep through, and it does become a little bit of therapy while working my character through the situation. This could be something that I could apply to my life, but I don't know that I identify with anybody. Yeah, I mean, it would be Angie if anybody, but I think she's stronger than I am. And I don't think that I would have ever given in to Preston, to be honest.
It would have been fucking forever.
Given in. Mm-mm.
And I think it's important that you note that is strength, like being able to give in to Preston. Opening up can also be,
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is the ultimate in. I do see vulnerability as strength, and being able to put your fear aside and put down all of your assumptions and your things that you're afraid of and just step out in faith. I don't have that. I don't have it. And so, yeah.
Okay. Do you have a favorite line or passage from A Thin Line that you want to share?
One line that always makes me laugh, I don't know why, when she talks about when Preston is talking, and she says, I roll my eyes so hard I could see yesterday. Like, I don't know if you've ever just rolled your eyes so hard at somebody because he's just such a blowhard. Like, shut up. Like, Oh my God. That line always cracks me up. Also, after Jackie has her baby and they're in the kitchen and they're talking about how Preston has said, he's like, I've never seen a fresh baby before. And she turns on, she's like, do you mean a newborn? like he is so smart and so accomplished, but he really just said fresh baby. And then and then he's like, have you ever thought about having children? And she's like, oh, I was never with a guy that made me think about having kids before. And she's like, and he's asks her, well, are you now with a man that makes you think about having kids? She's like, well, your dick's in my ass. So I just love coming up with snappy little sayings like that.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that. I love banter. I love writing a fight. I will write all of the fights before I will write any sweet nothings, because I just love, I don't know that I love conflict, but I love that tearing apart so that they can come back together. So those are ones that I'm sure there are others, but those are lines that make me laugh every time I read it.
Word. What are you reading right now?
Right now, I am reading a book called Until Death. It's by Delaney Diamond, who I think you've had her on the show before.
Yes. We did one of the Queen of Barricade.
Yes, absolutely. Love her. So I'm reading that because I just spent my weekend trying to catch up on everything that was coming out today. So this weekend.
Tuesday. I love Tuesdays.
Okay. This weekend I read Mrs. Wiggins by Mary Monroe, and Careless Whisper by Cynthia Williams, and Wild Women and the Blues by Denny S. Bryce, and all of them were absolutely fabulous. So this one's not on any list that I have to read because I agreed to read it for review or anything. I just love Delaney, and so I just started reading. I'm at 20% in. It's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous.
Cool. Okay, so one of the things in this book are young loves, and so we like to have a few interesting questions, fun questions. So, describe your first crush.
My first crush. Let me think of who that was. Besides Michael Jackson, I loved me some Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Your face looks like
because I'm
Lil Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I think of the Michael Jackson I knew, and I feel like we're about the same age, and so I'm like,
oh my gosh, I was like bad Michael Jackson. I was into it. I was like, pretty Michael.
I Jackson 5, but okay, all right.
I think I was junior high-ish when I was into Michael, so I had posters and everything. I'm trying to remember my crushes, and to be honest, I don't remember. I wasn't really all that into boys when I was younger. I was not a pretty child, so boys were kind of mean to me, so they weren't ever people that I would dream about.
Oh, fuck them.
I don't know.
Fuck them.
Yeah, I don't like it. I think when I was in high school, I had a crush on a guy. He was Asian American, and it's really all he sang. He's super smart, but I also at one point heard him kind of talk some shit about me, and so then I was like, yeah, well, that's over. So
there's that.
Yeah. I don't know that I really had a lot of crushes. I'm a very boring person.
Girl,
the excitement in my life is in the books.
Just look, whatever it takes to keep putting out those books, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, that's where it comes.
So, tell us about your prom.
My mom's friend made my dress. It's a big pink silky satin thing. I went with a friend. It was fun. I remember we couldn't find a ride because our car broke down, so my dad couldn't drive us. So it was just a mad dash to find somebody to take us. And at the last minute, my friend Alex said, "Hey, we're riding right by your house. Me and my date, we'll come pick you up." So we went. We had a great time. It wasn't like a romantic thing. We just went as friends. He ended up meeting the woman that he married like the next day. So
Wow.
I just had really good time. We went to prom, and then the tradition was to like go to Sherry's after prom. Sherry's is like a Perkins Denny's type of place, and so we went and I don't know, had coffee and pancakes or something like that. It was so long ago. I just turned 47, so that's a lot of remembering.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it was fun. I don't know that I would ever do it again, but I definitely am glad that I did it the one time.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Last fun question. Not so fun. Describe your first heartbreak.
Oh my goodness. I was older. I want to say in my 30s, and I had met a great guy off a dating website, and we just clicked. And I fell for him pretty early on, and he understood about the whole virginity thing and didn't really pressure me at all. We just instantly just had a great time together. And I remember that I had decided I was going to tell him that I loved him, and it took a lot to work up the nerve. And I remember that we were kind of, laying there, and I was like, "I got something to tell you." And he's like, "Okay." And I said, I love you." And he was like, "How do you know?" And I was like, "'Cause I know." And he's like, "Okay."
Well,
like not
yeah,
at
there goes that
all,
vulnerability
right?
thing. Yeah,
Right.
great.
And
Well,
like not at all like I
tried.
thought,
Yeah. Oh my
like I
gosh,
thought it
I'm
would
so
be.
sorry. Mhm.
And I was like, well, this was a bad idea. Also, two, keep your mouth shut and don't ever say nothing ever again. Wait until he says it first. So we broke up soon after that because I think he wasn't ready for that. He didn't want what I wanted, and he wasn't. I think he just wasn't ready for that, and I don't think that he expected to hear that. I think it was about maybe 3-ish months in. But I was, older and mature enough to know how I felt, and I wanted to say it. I don't think that I regret saying it. Maybe I regret maybe it was too early, or I didn't read his body language or whatnot. But that was a lot. It took me a long time to get over that, to get over him. And he did try to come back later, and I wanted to give it another shot, but we just never made that same connection again. But that was like my first real heartbreak. I had a really hard time getting over him.
Mm-hmm.
It was like my first love, really my first time falling in love and just feeling that warm, fuzzy feeling. And I really, after that, I think is when I just had a hard time really letting down that wall and just feeling like I could put my heart in the hands of someone again. And I don't know that I have ever really truly felt that for another person.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What's turning you on today, if anything?
What's turning me on right now is I have a new job.
Yes.
Stability and security. And so now I can turn my focus back to the 2 books I'm trying to write to get out before the end of the year. This book I'm reading by Delaney Diamond is fantastic. She writes some of the best sex that I have ever read. So that's turning me on. Candles are turning me on. Yes. And really just like spring, being in love with life, feeling the winter doldrums lift. I got my first COVID vaccine shot, so that's making me feel good. So it's all coming up roses over here.
Good.
Awesome. Yay. I think my next question is, where can people find you? We know your website is booksbydlwhite.com, right?
Yes.
And where
I'm
else
also on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as author DL White. I'm also on Pinterest as author DL White. I don't use it much, but I do a lot of storyboarding. So I will create a board just for a book. And so I will use that board to kind of give me an aesthetic. Like A Thin Line has a board where I have, there's a model that I used to kind of give me a feel for Preston and for Angie. What do they read? What do they eat? What do they drive? Where do they live? What's their style? What kind of perfume does she wear? What kind of suits does he like? Like a lot of times I'll just kind of collect information, and that's what informs my characters. And so I'll see something like, ooh, that is so Preston. Let me save that. And so I'll throw it into Pinterest. And then while I'm writing, I will use that as a reference. Like if I'm writing Preston's house, I'm looking at the image of his house that I have saved. And so then I can see the patio and the fire pit and the lake and, the house and the furniture. And I can see Andrew's apartment. And, I'm looking at, the bar that they always meet at and Andrew's parents' house. And so I need that visual in my mind. So that's what I use Pinterest for. So if anybody is ever interested in getting kind of a visual of what I see in my mind when I write my characters, you can always follow me on Pinterest. And I can't think of anything else. I'm also on TikTok as author DL White. I don't post very much, but if I'm anywhere, I'm author DL White. So you're welcome to follow me wherever you find me.
That's awesome. And I love that. And I think that the fact that you put that level of energy and specificity into those boards really comes through in the books. Like I can see your characters. I can see the restaurant where they have the drinks all the time.
I saw the house.
The fire pit, the lake with them. I could see all of it.
Yeah.
Like legit.
Yeah. That's the idea, just to I like to be vivid. And if I can't see it in my mind, if I can't hear that character saying those words, then it's not authentic to me. So I want the imagery to be vivid. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yay.
Well, I just followed you on Pinterest because
awesome. I'm building one for the couple of stories that I'm working on. So those are kind of in flux. So it'll be interesting to see how they turn out.
Yay. Okay. And you said you're aiming to release 2 more projects before the end of this year?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yay. And if y'all want to know more about those and find out when they come out, follow her on IG and Twitter and head over to her website, booksbydlwhite.com. And that brings us to the end of this week's episode. We made it.
Yay!
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pure joy.
Yay. Same. Yay. And thanks to all of you for listening. We appreciate y'all for stopping by, and we'll see y'all next week. Take care. This episode was produced by us, Kenry and Erica, and edited by Ballistic. The theme music is from Brazy. Hit subscribe right now in your favorite podcast app and at youtube.com/The Turn On Podcast so you'll never miss an episode.
Then follow us on Twitter at The Turn On Pod and Instagram at The Turn On Podcast. And you can find links to books, transcripts, guest info, what's turning us on, and other fun stuff at theturnonpodcast.com.
And don't forget to email us at theturnonpodcast@gmail.com with your book recommendations and your pressing sex and related questions.
And you can support the show by leaving us a 5-star review, buying some merch, or becoming a patron of the show. Just head to theturnonpodcast.com to make that happen.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Holla.